Welcome back to After Evenfall. Today we're going to go through 8 small box games. Alright everyone, it's so good to see you again. Welcome back to After Evenfall, where we inspire you to embark on adventures from home. Today we're going to go through 8 small box games, and let's get right into it. So I want to preface this whole video by saying I didn't include any of the Tiny Epic series just because we personally haven't played them, but if we did play them, I'm sure they'd make this list. These are just 8 small box board games that you might be interested in. So let's start with number 1, which is Dungeon Drop by Scott R. Smith and published by Phase Shift Games. So Dungeon Drop is a fun little game where there are cubes inside the box, and you take the cubes out, you mix them all together in a bag, and then you dump them all out all over the table. And I will preface this, if you're like me and if you don't have a board game table, I would highly recommend you playing this game on like a cookie sheet so you can contain it a little bit better. Sometimes we've had like pieces go flying off the table, but regardless, this is a game that you drop the cubes out onto the table, and the cubes are certain colors that represent certain things. So some of them will represent like gold, some of them will represent monsters, some of them will represent columns. And the columns in particular are the ones that you really want to look out for because they will determine what you can gather as you play your game. Looking down at where everything is spread out, you will take a look at the columns, and you will try to draw triangles, imaginary triangles, between the columns, grouping items within the triangle that you just made, and then you take those items from inside that triangle and you collect them. Sometimes you'll have monsters inside that will knock down your hearts occasionally, or you can get certain amounts of gold. There are expansions to this game as well. There's Dungeon Drop Deeper, which we have that one, and then there's also, I want to say like a Tavern Tales, something like that version of the game that you can purchase in addition. And the Drop Deeper version adds some cubes in that you can throw down and to make the game a little bit more challenging. There are also cards that come with the game, and the cards are super, super cute. And they represent certain factions and abilities that you can put together to give you just an extra edge. It gives you a little bit of asymmetrical play. It's not over the top. It's not like Root where you're trying to learn a completely unique game to the other players around you at the table. This one is very minor asymmetrical factions, but it's still really fun, and it allots for a little extra edge to the game. I have played this with quite a few people. It's really nice as a family game too. You can play it with younger kids. The one thing I would say is if you're going to play it with younger kids, they need to be able to read. That is the one precursor to playing this game, just because your faction card you refer back to so often. And there's not a ton of reading on there, but you just need to know how to read. That's it. But the gameplay to it, it's like a dungeon crawler game. It's super unique. I've never played anything like it, and it's very fun and enjoyable for everyone. And that is Dungeon Drop. So my next game is a newer one to us. I've only played it a few times, and I've always played it solo. But I could tell you that it's probably going to be more fun and more challenging with more players. Solo play is still fun, but it's just not quite as, it doesn't have quite as much of like the stress of like, oh, what's in your hand, or anything like that. It'll make sense in a minute, I promise. But my next game that I have is Tranquility by James Emerson and produced by Board Game Hub. So what I really like about this game, it is a card game. You have these square cards that you're given, and you lay them out on the table. There are various ways that you can put them out, and you are trying to lay out cards in numerical ascending order from one corner from the bottom corner to the top corner. Within that, you also need to make sure that you're getting like the end card that you need to end the game. And one stipulation about where these cards are placed is they have to be in that ascending order that I mentioned earlier. But if you're placing 2 cards next to each other, you have to pay the difference between the cards out of your hand in cards. So if I put like a 35 next to a 33, now I have to discard 2 cards out of my hand. It's a really fun game. It's very thinky and very challenging. I would classify it as a lullaby game because it is kind of more relaxed. It's tranquil. There's not a ton of over-the-top competitiveness, but I could see potentially how if you are playing with the right group of people, I could see people getting upset and wanting to table talk really hard. My mom is a really big table talker. She can't help herself. And I don't think I'd play this with you. Love you, but I just think that it would stress my mom out so badly to not be able to just tell you what's in her hand. Like, she would be looking at the board like, don't put that there, don't put that there, don't put that there, or don't put that there. And it would drive you crazy. Outside of that, I think it's a really fun game for like me and my husband. It's kind of more of a chill game night game. And it's fairly easy to teach. The idea of the game is very straightforward. It makes it really easy to bring to the table when you're having maybe like new players at the table, just because it's not so, if I put this here, it's going to stress me out for this reason or this reason or this reason. It's more kind of like, well, yep, I just had to pay for that with every single card I had in my hand, and that sucks. But now I got to pick up new cards and we'll make it work. You know, it's more of that kind of a game. I would recommend this for couples who maybe want a little bit more of a calm night, and that is Tranquility. So the next game that I have is Deceptively Mean for how small of a box it is and how pretty of a cover it is. It kind of looks like it should be a lullaby game, and I mean, it potentially could be, but it does have area control to it, and that makes it a little bit more difficult. But I will say beforehand, I'm going to include the name of the designer down in the tab because I don't want to mess it up. I always blow it with names, and I just don't want to slaughter anyone's name. I always feel bad when I do that. But this is Dandelions by BoardGameTables.com. So this is a roll and move area control game where you have 5 tiles laid out in an ascending rondel almost. And you have your little pawns that you place down on the first number. You each get a handful of small dice, and you roll them out on the table, and these are your dice to select from for the rest of the game. There are a number of circles on the edges of each tile that your pawn can move to, based on the number of pips on the dice that you're moving to that spot. And once you move there, you'll place your dice down, and once you move there, other people might want to move there as well, so you might all be on the same tile, and you're slowly putting out dice. You're trying to be the majority control of each of the tiles. So the tiles all represent unique gardens that you're spreading your dandelion seeds to, and each of the tiles throughout the game will slowly collect a number of dice. Then you will score points based off of how many tiles are in certain areas, and in some cases it'll be how many pip are on the die. Like if you have more pips on your die than someone else and you have the same number of die, the person who actually has the lower amount of pips gets to score their pips onto the score sheet. And so there's a major part of the game is area control. I believe it's only 3 players. Yeah. So this game is 2 to 3 players. And it can be really, really mean just because you're doing that area control. There's also an element where if you roll the same number as someone else in the same garden, you can move their die to another number adjacent to your garden. And that effect, almost everyone will boot you to the lower number just because you'll get 1 less point for that die. If they boot you to the upper number, then they'll get 1 more point. And it can get kind of competitive. It can get kind of heated for being as cute of a little game as it is. But that is Dandelions. So staying on theme with BoardGameTables.com, this is also the publisher for this other game that I have, and this one has been a huge hit everywhere that we've taken it. It can be as rambunctious or as mellow as you want it to be, and that is Mountain Goats by Stefan Risthaus and published, like I said, by Board Game Tables. So in this game, there are a bunch of cards in here, and you're going to lay them out with each number descending below the same number of its type. So you'll have like a row of 10s going down, and then a row of 9s and 8s and 7s and 6s and 5s. And then you'll place little mountain goats at the bottom of each of those rows. Now throughout the game, you will be rolling these 4 set of dice to come up with these options that will allow you to go up certain tracks. Like if I got a 4, a 5, a 6, and a 6, then potentially I could take my mountain goat and go up the 6 track twice and then go up the 9 track once, or maybe I could go up the 6 track twice, the 5 track once, and then just forget the 4 die. You get to pick what you want to do with your mountain goat. And once your mountain goat reaches the top of these tracks, you get a certain number of points for every time that you roll that number and pick it as the die that you're using. So if I got all the way up to the 5 track, and then I rolled 2 5s my next turn, I would take 2 5 tiles. Now the only stipulation is you also have these other mountain goats that are coming up the track as well, and once they hit the top, they boot you all the way back down to the bottom of the track, and your mountain goat goes tumbling down the mountain, and then they can start to accrue those points. My opinion is that this game plays so well at 4 players that you should just always play it at 4 players. Anything less than that, it gets way less competitive. I know that there's also an expansion so that you can play this at 5 players. I would like to get that expansion. We just haven't yet. We've played this with family, and it has gone over so well. Everyone loves the game. It's super hilarious to see who gets booted. And it's not like Monopoly where you've spent all this time accruing these things, and then when you lose, it's like, oh, I just wasted so much time. In this game, when you get booted off your mountain, there's a good chance it's for a mean reason. But because you didn't spend a ton of time getting to the top of the mountain and you're vying for it with everyone else, it's a lot less overtly mean. It's a little bit more just joking mean than it is actually mean. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is it's a really enjoyable game, and we've had a really fun time playing it, and that is Mountain Goats. Okay, so my next game I have a little bit of a different opinion on, and I will get to that once I'm done describing the game, but that is Skull King by Brett and Jeffrey Beck and published by Grandpa Beck's Games. So this is a twist on a classic game. If any one of you ever grew up playing Wizard or Rook, this is a trick-taking game where you are playing out cards. You're bidding before your round. You're playing out the cards to try to see what kind of points you get. And if you don't get your point value, you might get penalized for that, or you might get points for that. For meeting it, it's all kind of dependent on different factors. But the one thing that makes this different from Rook is that there are pirates involved in the game. There are pirate cards that you can play, and then there's also like a mermaid card, and then there's the Skull King card, and there are a few other extra cards in there, so you can, and there's a huge variety of ways that you can play it. You can add certain cards in or not include them, and that can alter your gameplay significantly. That being said, this one is usually a game that you will see in a lot of people's homes. It's kind of a gateway game, at least for card players. If people are getting tired of playing the face cards, this is typically the one that they go to, or this or some of the other ones on my list that I'll get to later. But now to my opinion about this game. I hate this game. Like, I hate it with like a fiery burning passion. Now, I just want to preface this by saying that does not mean it's a bad game. I hate it for reasons that are very personal, which I will get into. So, all growing up, my mom loved playing Rook, right? It was like Rook, Settlers of Catan, and Ticket to Ride, and Agricola, but that came a little bit later. But those, mainly Settlers and Rook, we played over and over and over and over again. And when we all started to get bored of Rook, Mom was like, hey, how about we all start playing this game Wizard? And this Wizard game is just Rook in a different font. It's the same thing. The bidding is a little bit different. You're not bidding for like 120 points or something like that. You're bidding for like the amount of hands that you'll win. It's the same game. It's different font. And my mom convinced us all that it was a different game, and we played it all the time. And even now, whenever we all get together, it's always, do you want to play Wizard? Hey, let's go play Wizard. I know, what if we play this cool game called Wizard? Like, it drives me nuts. I have played Wizard and Rook so many times, I swear I have cards coming out my eyeballs. Like, it's been so much. And Skull King is, again, those games in a different font. It's the same. I like trick-taking games. I can only play so much of them, especially because the sheer amount of times that I have played trick-taking games is just unearthly. I have just done it so much. That all aside, a lot of people love this game. I am not one of them. I cannot say that I love it, but that, again, personal reasons. I've just played games like this a ton. A lot of people really enjoyed this game. They really love the engagement of it. It's a very good game for big family gatherings. We have had, with its adjacent game Rook, at family reunions, all of the older people get together at separate tables, and for like 3 days straight, they'll just play nothing but Rook. And so that's what I always think of when I think of Skull King, Rook or Skull King. But it's a good game for big families, and it's a fun game if you have a lot of people in your family who've maybe played games like Rook or Wizard for a long time, and they're wanting something that they can understand, but just with a little twist to it. That could be a really good reason to play it. But that is Skull King. Okay, so my next game is another one that's relatively new to us. We just purchased it a few months ago, and we brought it to the table at Christmas, and we really enjoyed playing it. And that is Wonder Woods by Eli Thomas Woods and produced by Blue Orange Games. And it has a little bit of lid lift. I'm trying not to there we go. Anyway, so in this game, this is a bluffing strategy game with a little bit of deduction to it, where there are 4 different mushroom boards placed out on the table, and then each mushroom has a hand that is shuffled together, and 1 card is slid under the board. You don't know what that card is, you don't know what point value that card is given, and the rest of the cards then that are left over get shuffled together and dealt out to all of the players. You have a limited number of cards in your hand, and you're trying to deduce what card is underneath those boards, because those cards represent the amount of points that the mushrooms are worth if you go and gather them. So you're looking at your cards, and you have to determine what you think is going to be a higher scoring mushroom, and you will send your baskets out to go harvest those mushrooms. Well, other people are seeing your baskets go out and harvest them, and they're trying to make assumptions based on their own hands as well, and they're going to different places, and you're trying to deduce based off of everyone else's turns and your turns, which is the most profitable mushroom to gather. Then in between rounds, once your baskets are gone, you will take a look at your card, and if you want to gain maybe more baskets in the future, you have the ability to reveal one of your cards to the rest of the players, and for each card that you reveal, you get one of the baskets that you haven't gained yet in the game. Most people in my family will not share. They will not show you what it is that they have in their hand. But regardless, it's a really fun game. I love the deduction element to it. This has been one of the bigger hits out of the games that we've played lately. My husband really enjoyed it as well. I think that the cards themselves are really, really pretty. I think that I love the little basket meeples. Sometimes I just wish I could collect meeples and keep them on my walls, because I would just decorate my whole walls with unique meeples. I love them. I think they're so cute. And anyway, basket meeples are really cute in this game. And the little mushroom pieces that you get to are really adorable. It's a really fun game. I like the take on it quite a bit, and that is Wonderwoods. So I have 2 more games on this list that are by Grandpa Beck's games. So you'll see those come up. This next game is one of them, and that is Gnoming Around by Brent Beck. So with a lot of the Grandpa Beck's games, they do tend to be reskins of old games, and this is no different. This is a new rendition on the game Golf, if any of you have ever played that. So Golf and Gnoming Alone both have similarities. I'm just going to talk about Gnoming Around as if it's a new game altogether, just because it's easier for me to explain it if I'm not competing with the comparison. So in Gnoming Around, you are dealt 9 cards and face down, and you place them all out in front of you in a big rectangle, and you don't know what's underneath the cards, but your goal is to get the least amount of points on the cards by the end of your game. There are a certain amount of rounds to each game, and the round plays where you're either drafting off the top of the deck or you're drafting from a discard pile, and you will flip those cards face up and replace a card out of your pile in front of you with that card. Now, you might find out that the card that you gave up was a really low scoring point, and that would have been really good for you, but too bad, so sad. Now you have a 6-pointer because you're trying to make rows of the same number to try to negate one another, because I believe in the game it's if you have a row of all of the same number, then they equal 0 or something along those lines. But in this game, there are also added additions of there's these cards with stars in the corner that allow you to have certain effects. There are gnomes that will have -2 on them points, which is really nice to have. It's very easy to pick up, and it's very easy to understand. It's a very simple game. You can play it with almost anyone. It's a super, super family-friendly game, and that is Gnoming Around. So my last game, like I said, is also a Grandpa Beck's game. This one, however, I do not think was a reskin. I might be really wrong on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I have never seen this game before this copy of it. And that is The Bears and the Bees, produced by Grandpa Beck's Games. So The Bears and the Bees is kind of like Uno meets Honey Buzz, that lower section where you're placing out your tiles. You have cards instead, though, hexagon-shaped cards that you're placing down, and you're matching the colors on the corners with them to gain points. Similar to Uno, where you're trying to get rid of your hand. You're trying to get rid of all the cards by laying them down, and throughout the process, maybe you get a flower, or you get workers, or you get certain things like that placed on the board. Some of those actions will give other people a lot more cards, and everyone's just competing all at once to try to get rid of theirs. The tile/card laying feels very similar to Honey Buzz, so that part is really easy for me to pick up on. It's a very simple game, and it's a lot of fun. I would put it in that category with Skull King and with Gnoming Around, where it's a really good one to pull out with a lot of family. The mechanisms are very easy to pick up on, and it has very beautiful cards. I love the flower ones. I think that they're so pretty. as you lay them out. And once you see the whole board to come together, it makes a really pretty picture. I know not everyone is interested in that, but I'm one of those people that I love it when you've been playing a game and you've been putting in all this effort with all of these other people, and it just looks so cool on the board once it's done. And this is one of those that as you're building it out, you just feel kind of that satisfaction from. And that is the Bears and the Bees. So that has been 8 small box card games, and I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw. I just wanted to say again that I'm so appreciative of every single one of you, especially for watching all through my videos and liking and sharing and subscribing. That has meant so much to me, and I just wanted to say again how appreciative I am of that. I thank you so much for watching and hope to see you again in the After Evenfall community.